So we finally made it. We are. We're crossing the finish line today.
Yeah.
For what, 11 conversations now? We have been building this incredible mental and spiritual architecture.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how to think, how to use denials, affirmations, what faith really is, that secret place of silence.
It has been quite a journey. We've
Uh,
essentially been constructing a house, brick by brick, and today we finally get to put the roofs on.
Exactly. This is the final chapter of Emilie Cadis's Lessons in Truth. It's called Unity of the Spirit.
Right.
And I have to be honest with you, when I first saw that title, I kind of flinched a little. It sounds a bit soft.
I get that.
I thought, okay, is this going to be about everyone holding hands, singing songs, and just pretending everything is fine? Because if we've done all this really rigorous mental work just to end up at, let's all just get along,
Yeah.
I might be, a little disappointed.
That is a very common reaction for sure. Unity is a word that's been, well, it's been watered down a lot.
Right.
But Cady isn't talking about social niceties here. She is not talking about pretending to like everyone.
Okay, good.
No, she's talking about a really profound metaphysical realization. It's an internal state, first, that ends the war inside your own mind.
I like that.
And the byproduct of ending that internal war is that the war with the people around you.
Yeah.
It tends to dissolve, too.
So it's the antidote to that thing that happens to so many of us when we start studying this material. You get a little bit of knowledge, you learn some spiritual laws, and suddenly you become...
Insufferable.
Yeah, insufferable. Spiritually arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
You're the person at the dinner table correcting everyone's language. Someone says, oh, I'm so worried about the flu, and you jump in with, don't claim that, you're manifesting sickness.
Oh, it's so cringeworthy.
Uh-huh.
And it's annoying. And frankly, it just pushes people away. It creates separation.
Which is the exact opposite of spirit.
Exactly. You think you found the truth with a capital T, and everyone else is just lost in the dark. This chapter is the cure for that rigidity. It's about moving from the letter of the law, the technicalities, to the spirit of it.
I think we all need that cure. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to do that, I do have a request. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
So, where are we going today? What's the plan?
We have a roadmap. We are going to unpack Cady's famous aperture metaphor, which explains why we all see things so differently and why we fight about it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Then we're going to look at why arguing about truth is actually the least effective way to share it. We're going to discuss the single eye technique, which is a massive game changer for focus and, well, for mental health.
And we're going to wrap up with an exercise.
We will. A final guided exercise to really lock this all in.
Sounds like a perfect way to close out the book.
Let's start with what Cady calls the warning. She opens this chapter by cautioning us about the human intellect. She says we have this tendency to take the infinite, this massive, uncontainable truth, and try to cram it into a quart measure of our own understanding.
That is such a vivid image.
Yeah.
A quart measure. It's a small container.
Yes, it is.
And she's saying that the intellect, as useful as it is, it loves boundaries. It loves definitions. It wants to draw a box around God and say, okay, God is exactly this and nothing else.
But the spirit is boundless.
Of course. So when we try to define truth strictly by our own specific theology or philosophy, we're literally trying to put the ocean into a cup.
And naturally, we get angry when other people's cups look different. She uses this brilliant metaphor of a house to explain this. I want us to really visualize this because it explains almost every argument on the internet today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine a house.
A house with all sorts of different openings. Windows, skylights, maybe some cracks in the wall, little knotholes in the wood.
Right. So I'm inside this house. And let's say the house represents my own, my human limitations. I'm sort of trapped inside my own perspective. I walk up to a tiny knothole in the wood and I look out. And directly in my line of sight, outside in the garden, there's a big oak tree. That is all I can see.
Okay.
So I turn around and I shout to everyone, hey, the world is a tree. That is the truth. I have seen it with my own eyes.
Meanwhile, I'm standing maybe 10 feet away from you. I'm looking through a slat in the blinds. And from my angle, I don't see the tree at all. I see a brick wall that runs along the edge of the garden.
Right.
So I look at you and I say, you're crazy. You are hallucinating. The world is not a tree. The world is a red brick wall.
And now we're fighting. I'm screaming, you're blind. Can't you see the leaves?
And I'm screaming back, you're delusional. It's solid and red.
And the tragedy is we're both looking at the same garden. We're both looking at the same reality. But our aperture, that little opening we're looking through, It just limits our view to a specific slice.
That's the aha moment right there. The
Yeah.
conflict isn't about the reality outside. It's about the aperture we're looking through.
Cady writes, each one looking at the same world sees just according to the size of the aperture through which he is looking. The problem starts when we mistake our little slice for the whole pie.
When we think our view is the total view.
This feels so incredibly relevant to the modern world. I mean, Cady was writing this in the 1890s, dealing with different church denominations fighting, but today we talk about filter bubbles and algorithms.
It's the exact same mechanism. Whether it's a social media algorithm feeding you news that confirms what you already believe, or a religious doctrine that says, we're the only ones going to heaven.
It's all aperture thinking.
All of it. It's seeing a fragment and claiming it's the whole.
And it feels safe, doesn't it? To think you have the whole view. It's kind of scary to admit, I might only be seeing part of the picture here.
Uncertainty is uncomfortable for the ego. The ego wants to be right. It wants the security of that little court measure. But spiritual maturity is realizing that the view through your knothole is true. There really is a tree there. But it's not the only truth. The wall exists too. The fountain exists too.
So if we accept this, that we're all just peering through our own little knotholes, what do we do when we disagree with someone? The instinct is to grab them by the collar, drag them over to our knothole and scream, "Look at the tree. Admit it."
Which Cady says is absolutely futile. In fact, she says it backfires. Every time.
She's very firm on this. She says arguing, proselytizing, trying to force someone to see your truth, it never works. But why? I mean, if I'm right, shouldn't I be able to convince you?
Well, let's look at the psychology of it. When you come at someone with that "I am right, you are wrong" energy, you trigger a biological defense mechanism. In modern psychology, it's called a social evaluative threat.
Okay.
The other person's ego feels attacked. Their brain actually shifts into a defensive protective state.
So they literally cannot hear your logic. They're too busy defending their identity.
Exactly. They just double down. Their walls go up. You might have the best logical argument in the world. But if the delivery's aggressive, the door just slams shut. Cady has this beautiful phrase for it. She says, "True, there is law, but there is gospel also."
That sounds a bit theological. Let's unpack that for a modern listener. Law versus gospel.
Think of it this way. Law is the mechanics. It's cause and effect. It's the cold, hard rule.
Like a traffic cop.
Perfect. You run a red light, the law says. You did the crime, you pay the fine. It's impersonal, it's rigid. In metaphysics, the law is what you think you create.
Okay, so if I go around telling people you're sick because you've been thinking negative thoughts, I'm basically just hitting them with the law.
You are. And it's harsh. It lacks humanity. It lacks grace. Gospel, in this context, just means good news. It's grace. It's love. It's the personhood of God.
I see.
So going back to that traffic cop, if that cop sees you're rushing your pregnant wife to the hospital and he says, "Go, be safe, I'll escort you." That's gospel. That's grace overriding the mechanics.
Yeah. Okay. So Cady's saying we can't just hammer people with the metaphysical rule book.
We have to embody the gospel. We must embody love and non-resistance. You don't argue the darkness out of a room. You just turn on the light.
Right.
You don't argue someone into seeing the truth. You live the truth so beautifully that they ask you what your secret is.
I love that. Stop preaching, start living. Now, this leads us to the core technique of this chapter. It's a concept she pulls from the Bible, but she gives it a very specific, practical spin. The single eye.
This comes from the verse in Matthew, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light."
Cady tells a story here that I think is the emotional anchor of the whole book. It's about an uneducated woman she met. And I want to pause on this because it's easy to kind of glaze over these old-timey stories, but this one it's real.
It's very real. This woman was not a scholar. She knew nothing about high philosophy, nothing about new thought science, nothing about theology. By the standards of the world, she was, ignorant.
But Cady describes her face as having this unearthly radiance. She was just glowing with peace. And the kicker is, this woman had a really hard life.
A very hard life.
She lived in poverty. She had a husband who was an alcoholic and difficult. There was illness in the family. She had every single reason to be miserable and bitter and stressed out.
But she wasn't. And when Cady asked her, what is your secret? How do you stay so calm in this mess?
Yeah.
The woman explained her interpretation of that verse.
Yeah.
She said, essentially, looking at God with one eye and at this evil with the other is being double-eyed. And God told me to keep my eyes single.
Double-eyed. That image just it really sticks with me. It's the feeling of splitting your focus.
It's profound. The woman refused to give the evil, the poverty, the drinking, the sickness, any spiritual authority. She wouldn't look at the problem with one eye and then try to glance over at God with the other to fix it. She withdrew her attention completely from the appearance of lack and focused it entirely on the reality of good.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here. I can hear a listener asking, wait a minute, if my husband is an alcoholic and we're broke, isn't ignoring that just dangerous denial? Isn't that toxic positivity?
That is a very valid pushback. But there is a massive difference between delusion and attention control. The woman wasn't delusional. She knew the bills needed paying, but she wasn't ruminating on them.
It's about where the mental energy goes.
It's exactly that. Neuroscience talks about the task-positive network in the brain versus the default mode network.
Okay.
The default mode is where we worry and we spin stories and we replay disasters. That is being double-eyed, half on the task, half on the fear. The single eye is essentially switching on that task-positive network. It is absolute focus.
So she wasn't pretending the problems didn't exist. She was refusing to let them colonize her mind.
Exactly. By keeping her eyes single on the good, she stayed in a state of peace and capability. And ironically, that state of mind makes you so much better at actually solving the problem. You can't fix a broken marriage or a bank account from a place of panic. You fix it from a place of power.
Focus determines reality. If you stare at the problem gets bigger in your mind. If you stare at the source, at the possibility of a solution, that expands.
Precisely. And this leads to the broader concept of unity.
Yeah.
If we're all trying to keep our eyes single, does that mean we all have to look the same? Do we all have to act the same?
Right. Unity without uniformity. This is such a crucial distinction, especially for people who are afraid of losing their individuality.
Think of the ocean and the waves. Every single wave is different. Some are huge rollers, some are whitecaps, some are just gentle swells.
Right.
They look different, they move differently, they crash at different times.
Yeah.
But they're all composed of the exact same water.
So we are the waves, the spirit is the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uniformity would be trying to make every wave look identical.
Yeah.
Which is impossible and, frankly, boring. Unity is recognizing that despite the different shapes, we are all the same substance.
Cady goes pretty far with this. I mean, she mentions the heathen worshiping a golden calf.
She does. She says that even the person worshiping an idol, a golden calf is, at their core, seeking something higher than themselves. The form is wrong, the theology might be confused, but the intent of the heart is reaching toward the divine.
That is radical compassion. It is so hard to do. It means looking at someone who is doing something I completely disagree with, maybe even something I find repugnant, and saying, deep down, they're looking for safety or love or truth, just like I am. They're just using a different map.
And probably a bad map. But yes, the goal of this entire conversation is to see the spirit in everyone, regardless of their current level of understanding. When you can look at someone who is totally different from you, politically, religiously, culturally, and say, that is another wave of the same ocean.
Then the judgment just dissolves.
It dissolves, and when the judgment dissolves, you are free.
Okay, let's make this practical, because we promised not to leave this in the clouds. How do we apply this unity of the spirit in real life? We have 3 specific scenarios where this comes up all the time. First one, work.
Okay, work is a great testing ground. Let's say you have a colleague who wants to solve a problem using a method you think is just inefficient or wrong or plain stupid.
The old me would immediately jump in, argue, prove them wrong, and try to, assert my dominance. I know better.
That's the aperture again. You're seeing the tree, they're seeing the wall. The Cady way is to realize their aperture sees a different angle. Instead of fighting the method, you apply the single eye.
How?
You focus on the successful resolution. You trust that the outcome can still be good, even if the path isn't the one you would have chosen.
So you release the need to be the one who is right. You prioritize the solution over your ego.
Exactly.
Okay, second scenario, relationships. The classic domestic dispute.
This is almost always fueled by I'm right energy. You're dug in. You see your partner as an adversary.
That's double vision.
It is. You're seeing them as a problem, not as a spiritual being. You're looking at their flaws with one eye and trying to love them with the other.
So the shift is to apply the gospel, not the law.
Right. Stop trying to lawyer your partner.
Yeah.
Stop bringing up the evidence of their past failures. Just drop the resistance. See the spirit in them. It is amazing how often, when one person drops the rope in a tug-of-war, the other person just falls back into balance.
And finally, spiritual communities. This is the big one Cady was addressing specifically.
Sectarian division. My church is the true church. My yoga studio is the only authentic one. My guru is the real one. Yours is a fake.
Mm.
Cady warns that this creates a wall of partition.
It's the ultimate trap, isn't it? It uses spirituality to create separation, which is the definition of ego.
That's it exactly. The shift here is to acknowledge that everyone is on the path. Your job is to live your truth, not police theirs. If you are busy looking at someone else's path, judging it, critiquing it, your eye is not single. You are looking at them,
Yeah.
not at God.
Mm.
You have
Yeah.
lost your own connection because you're too busy monitoring theirs.
Wow. If you're policing them, your eye is not single, that hits home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've gone through 12 chapters. We have done the denials, the affirmations, the faith. What has this book actually done to us? What's the point of it all?
It's been a comprehensive training program. If you look at the arc, it's moved us from thinking God is some distant man in the sky, an external deity, to understanding God as an indwelling spirit.
It moved us from begging in prayer, please God, give me this, to affirming in faith, thank you God that this is already mine.
And it moved us from being victims of circumstance, just tossed around by the waves, to being architects of our experience through that secret place.
So the final destination isn't just a smart person who knows metaphysics. It's a person who is calm,
Non-judgmental,
powerful, and silent.
and unified with the source.
But theory is useless without practice.
It is.
Which brings us to our guided exercise. We are going to combine the aperture and the single eye right now.
Let's do this.
Okay, step first. I want you to notice one place in your life where you have been certain and small. A place where you feel rigid, judgmental, or just convinced that you are right and they are wrong. Maybe a political argument, a family feud, a frustration at work. Just bring it to mind.
Okay, got one.
Step next. Expand the aperture. Mentally name what the other person might be seeing. You don't have to agree with it. Just acknowledge that their window looks out on a different part of the garden. Validate that their perspective is real to them.
So just say to yourself, they're seeing a wall, I am seeing a tree, both exist.
Exactly. And step finally, return to the single eye. Make one quiet commitment to live the truth today. Drop the argument. Turn your inner gaze solely to the presence of peace and capability within you. Breathe into that unity. Withdraw your attention from the conflict and place it on the source.
Feel the tension leave your shoulders when you do that. You don't have to win, you just have to be.
That is powerful. I hope you're actually doing this, not just listening while you do the dishes.
Yes.
Now, before we wrap up, let's troubleshoot. What are the common mistakes people make with this whole unity concept?
There are 5 big ones that really trip people up.
Okay, mistake first.
Confusing unity with passivity. People think, oh, if I'm non-resistant, I have to let people walk all over me.
No.
No, you can set boundaries, but you do it without hatred. You do it with a clear, calm no, rather than a frantic, angry fight.
Yeah.
A no, spoken from the single eye, is much more powerful than a scream.
Okay. Mistake next.
Spiritual bypassing. We touch on this. Using God as good to ignore real trauma or pain. The fix is that the single eye acknowledges the fact of the problem. It doesn't pretend the leg isn't broken,
Right.
but it denies the problem's permanence or its spiritual authority over you.
Yeah.
You deal with a leg, but you don't become the broken leg.
Mistake third.
Intellectualizing. We love to debate theology, the fix. Stop debating. Start practicing kindness. Silence is so much better than a clever argument.
Mistake fourth.
Trying to force the single eye through willpower. Straining to focus.
Oh, I've done that.
We all have. But it's not a strain. It's a relaxation. It's letting go of the distraction, not fighting it. It's like relaxing your eyes to see where those old stereogram pictures, not squinting harder.
And mistake fifth. The last one.
Feeling superior for having truth. This is the great irony. I am so much more enlightened than you. As Cady warned, arrogance proves you have missed the point entirely. True understanding brings humility. If you think you are better than others, you are right back in that aperture looking through a very, very small knothole.
All right, let's bring this home. I'm going to recap the key takeaways from this entire conversation.
Let's hear them.
First, the human mind sees through a limited aperture. Do not mistake your view for the whole view. Arguing and external pressure usually increase resistance. Live your truth instead of preaching it.
So important.
The single eye is the practice of withdrawing attention from the problem and focusing entirely on the divine solution.
That's the core of it.
Unity does not require uniformity. The spirit expresses itself in infinite ways.
The ocean and the waves.
In work and relationships, drop the I'm right energy to dissolve conflict.
Let go of the rope.
Real spiritual maturity is recognizing the intent of the heart in others, even if their methods differ. And finally, the journey of this book is to transform you from a seeker of knowledge into a living expression of peace.
Beautifully said. That's the whole goal.
We are leaving you today with the image of the secret place from our previous conversations. The unity of the spirit doesn't happen on Twitter. It doesn't happen in the comments section of a news article. It happens there, in the silence, where you connect with the source.
That is where the real work is done. Everything else is just shadowboxing.
We have loved going through this series with you. We really have. Now, we need your help. We're finished with Emilie, Cady. Who should be next? Which classic author should we cover in the channel's future lineup? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you joined us late, maybe this is your first time listening, I highly, highly recommend you go back and start the playlist from episode 1. You really need the foundation to understand the roof we built today.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.